Sounds good. Yeah.
Go ahead, Kate, and record.
Okay. Well, we are at 6:02. Thank you, everyone that has joined for the Salesforce user group meeting tonight. This is a super exciting meeting. As you all know, our guest presenter is really, really exciting. I want to start out, though, by giving a huge thanks to our Maravis sponsor and Kate Perez for helping us with the Zoom meeting. We are able to extend this meeting to up to 300 RSVPs, and that would not be possible if we didn't have the support of Kate and her team. And with that, I want to turn it over to Kate to give a quick introduction of herself and the Maravis Foundation.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. And good evening, everyone. It's not quite 6 o'clock. I'm on the Pacific Coast, but from Austin, so it's very near and dear to my heart to be able to support you guys in this way. I am the co-founder and executive director of Maravis. We are a nonprofit that partners with Salesforce to train military veterans and military spouses and help them transition into technology careers, namely Salesforce. So we do a lot of different things. We offer mock interviews, we offer resume reviews, we have a 5-week training cohort that essentially ramps them up for a career in the Salesforce ecosystem, whether that is an admin, a consultant, an architect, anything along those lines. So, we're really excited to partner with you guys and host you so that you guys can continue to build up the Austin-based Central Texas community. I'm sure there's our graduates are on the phone. So if you have questions about the program, you can ask them in the chat window. But a couple of things that I just wanted to share with you guys related to what we have coming up. Cindy, if you want to go on to the one quick slide. Thank you. So Maravis is, especially in response to COVID-19, Maravis is very much part of sort of that economic recovery, ensuring that people who have maybe lost their jobs that meet the criteria for being kind of that audience that we serve. So we are looking to not only move our programs, which historically have been online in Austin, to a virtual environment, but we're also looking to expand the number of those that we offer. And we really need the help of the community to continue to do that. We have 2 classes coming up. That will be starting on June 15th, and we are always looking for volunteers to help coach those individuals that come through the program. One of them will be based mostly towards San Antonio located individuals, and the other one will be people from all over the country. So you can certainly either help us spread the word. If you know anyone who would qualify for our programs, please let them know that this is an option if they're looking to get into Salesforce ecosystem. If you want to volunteer, we would love to have you join our volunteer group. And there's a lot of other ways that you guys can get involved. So we offer, professional development, webinars and technical skills. We offer those up to the public, not just those that we serve. We are in the process of figuring out, for anyone who has attended a Maravis Mixer in the past in Austin. I think our last one was in February, before all of this started up. But we're looking at taking those online and have some fun things coming up. And as always, we are always looking for financial support. If your company is Laura, they're both admin classes. It says we're going to have 2 classes on newly certified admins, and then we'll have a community cloud class starting up as well a little bit later in June. But if you have if your company is trying to figure out hey, we have some additional funding, we want to give back and support the ecosystem, Maravis as a nonprofit is entirely reliant on donations and sponsorships. So please keep us in mind for that. I have my email address here as well as the volunteer link. So if you want to volunteer, please go to that link and sign up. And if you have any questions, please either put something in the chat window or sorry, my dog is joining me, or email me at that below email address. So thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to talk about the program, and hope you guys have a great user group meeting tonight.
Thank you, Kate. Going to the next slide. I'm going to run through some quick announcements. I did skip quickly past the agenda as I was introducing Kate, but similar to the format of all of our user groups, tonight we'll go to that very familiar plan. I'm going to go through these announcements because, as you all know, we have a wonderfully involved group of communities here in Austin. And so we want to make sure that you all are aware of any upcoming user groups that are happening. And then I'll pass it over to Chris after these announcements, and he'll introduce our speaker. We'll go through that. We have Q&A tonight, and similar to last time, there is a Slido that will come up in a bit if you need to join that Slido room for questions, and we'll take questions at the end. And I also have a co-host, my 2-year-old Reese, so I was trying to keep him distracted with some Baby Shark videos, but he might interject every so often during these announcements. So let's get started. As you are all probably very well aware already, the Salesforce Summer 20 release has been delayed. I believe that's now pushed to July. As a result, we have pushed our release review meeting that normally would have happened this month. We've pushed it forward to June. So June 23rd, we'll have Stephen Frears go through the summer release. So be sure to RSVP for that once that invitation is sent out. Trailhead DX is virtual, as are most events or all events these days. So be sure to so be sure to sign up for that. And yes, it has a Baby Shark theme. Also, so the dev group is virtual. We'll be doing a virtual dreaming recap. Sign up for that. The Women in Tech group, also virtual, that it is focused on the COVID-19 job searching tips, and that will be featuring Jennifer Roberts. So sign up for that on June 9th. And finally, if you guys have been part of this user group for the past couple of years, the salary survey that went out a couple of years ago, we're going to redo that for the Austin metropolitan area. So if you want to participate, be on the lookout. You should see that coming in June or July. So my wonderful co-host and I will sign off now, and I will turn this over to Chris Robertson.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Cindy. So we are honored and excited to have a legitimate Salesforce legend joining us tonight. Steve Molis is our speaker. Speaking from personal experience, he has helped me out a ton. Whenever I can't figure out how to do something, I Google it, and 9 times out of 10, I do what Steve Mo did when he helped someone else solve the problem. He is a Trailhead Ranger. He's a 10-time Salesforce MVP. And the thing that I think impressed me the most is I believe he still holds the record for being the most prolific user of profanity during a Dreamforce presentation. This guy shreds formulas like they are evidence at an impeachment trial. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Steve Mo.
Thanks everybody. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the opportunity to present. I just want to, share some of my favorite formulas and like tips and tricks that I've come across over the years, and just pass them on to you. And so this is a session that I call Formulas and Admin Life Hacks, and there's a lot to digest here. So feel free if, during the session, if you have any questions, either post them in the chat. And if we have time at the end, we'll go through them. And I'm going to make the slides that I present available afterwards. And a lot of the formulas are going to show you, they reference standard fields, standard objects, so you can plug and play them right into your Salesforce org sandbox first. So let me just share my screen with you. And so, tell you a little bit about myself. As Chris mentioned, I'm a Salesforce MVP. I just got finally, after how long has Trailhead been around? I finally got my 100th Trailhead Ranger badge last year. And I'm also a community college dropout. I went to Bunker Hill Community College in Charlestown, Massachusetts, where I flunked out after 1.5 semesters, or as a buddy of mine called it, daycare for 18 to 24-year-olds. And I'm a self-taught Salesforce admin. So I've been with the same company for 25 years now. And back in 2003, I was working as a Lotus Domino developer. And one day in a meeting, I had just wrapped up a little project and my boss looked at me and said, okay, sales operations is getting this thing called Salesforce and you're going to learn it and then you're going to own it. And I joked that I started off with 25 users and it was 25% of my time. And now I've got 400 users and it's 450% of my time. And a lot of stuff I'm going to show you is stuff that I learned, a lot of it through trial and error, mostly error, over the years. One last thing about myself is that I'm a world record holder. I hold a world's record for the most time a speaker at Dreamforce has dropped the F-bomb during their presentation. The previous record was 0, held by every other speaker before or since. But Salesforce told me that I need to have my own safe harbor slide. So my 9-year-old daughter Millie is running around the house right now, so I'll try to keep it PG-13. So I want to share just like formulas that I've written over the years, a lot of them that have come from questions that have been posted in the Salesforce Answers community. And the first one is this one. Now, this formula will calculate the % of business days remaining in the current month so that you can do prorated invoicing. And that's a real formula I built. That's hands down the biggest, most complex formula I've ever built. And next to it is that's not Photoshop. That's a real thing. That is a Victorinox Swiss Champ VATX pocket knife. It's got 84 blades. It costs $450 and it weighs almost a pound. And this is my favorite formula in the world. This is called the Power of One. And I didn't create it. It was created by a guy who used to work for Salesforce named Tom Tobin, and he taught it to me. And I use this formula every single day. I use it on every standard and custom object. I use it in every report and dashboard. As soon as I create a custom object, it's the first field that I create on that custom object. And next to it is my favorite pocket knife. It opens bottles of beer, it opens bottles of wine, and I use it every single day, just like the Power of One, because I'm a Salesforce admin. And so the formulas that I'm going to show you in this presentation are not like that Victorinox Swiss Champ VATX. How many people need a pocket knife that weighs a pound? How many people need a pocket knife that costs $450? The formulas I'm going to show you are like this pocket knife. They work whether you're in Lightning or in Classic, whether you're on Unlimited Edition or Group Edition, whether your org is on nonprofit or whether you're in the high-tech industry or manufacturing. They'll work on nearly any standard or custom object. So I'm going to show you how to use basic math to simplify some complex formulas, how to create formula fields that will allow you and your users to create dynamic report filters, how to create a formula field that will return the ultimate parent account in a multi-level account hierarchy, hopefully without the sun blasting into your face like it is right now for me. I think we got another like 15, 20 minutes of that. How to create a formula to dynamically count the number of days until the opportunity close date for dynamic reports and dashboards, and how to do a simple test of validation rule formula logic and fabulous prizes. I promise you. It's going to be like Oprah's favorite things. So if you've never written a formula or you're a formula novice, you're going to be writing your formulas in this. This is the formula editor. And yes, it can be a little bit intimidating if you've never used it before. There's a lot of buttons on there, but trust me, they're not going to hurt you. They're there to help. I want to call out two in particular. The first one is the insert field button. No matter what kind of formula you're writing, whether it's a validation rule, a formula field, a formula for a workflow or process trigger, you need to use what's called the API field name. And that's not necessarily the same thing you see when you're looking at a record on the screen in front of you. And a perfect example of that is opportunity stage. The API field name for opportunity stage isn't stage. It's not opportunity stage. It's stage name. with a capital S and a capital N and no blank space in between. And that's what you need to use when you're writing a formula that calls in the stage field and evaluates it. The insert field button gives you the API field name. It gives you any cross-object references. Another one is the insert function button. When you pick a function from the list of options, Salesforce automatically updates the pop-up screen to show you a syntactically correct representation of that function with a little explanation about what that function does and a link to the online help and training entry for that function with examples of how that function can be used. Also, all the do's and don'ts about that function, when it can be used, when it can't be used. All that information is like one click away, and it's right there in the formula editor. And I've written, I don't know, a couple of thousand formulas. I use these buttons every single day. I don't know the API field name of every field on my org. I don't know every little nuance of every little function. I use these buttons every single time I write a formula. So the first formulas that I'm going to show you are ways that I basically broke down an otherwise complex formula and used really nothing more than basic math to solve it. And the first one came from a question that was posted in the Salesforce Answers community. And it was posted by this guy named Bart Ward. And Bart was trying to create a validation rule that would prevent his users from moving an opportunity backwards into a previous stage in the sales cycle. See, for Bart's company, the stages were like milestones. A deal could only go from like cultivation to proposal to contract negotiation, and then be either won or lost. A deal couldn't go from cultivation to proposal to contract negotiation back to proposal. He wanted to block that. And you can see in his question, he actually posted his first attempt at writing this validation rule. And he was using a function called isPickVal. And Bart had 17 different stages on his opportunity record. Now, I guarantee that he would have either exceeded the compile size limit, exceeded the character limit for a formula, or died of carpal tunnel syndrome before he covered every possible combination of this stage and all the previous stages in the sales process. So to solve this, I used a function called case, a function called prior value, and a less than mathematic operator. Now, Bart is using isPickVal, and isPickVal is a perfectly good function. It's purpose-built to evaluate a pick list field, look for a value in that pick list, and if it finds that value has been selected, it does something. It either returns a result or performs an action that you specify. But you can see that it's not the most efficient way to do things. For every value you look for and every action you want to perform, you're going to go back to the pick list field with another isPickVal function, another condition to look for, another action to perform. It's like asking your Alexa, are there zombies? Okay, run. Is it hot? Okay, let's go to the beach. Is it warm? Let's go hiking. Is it snowing? Let's build a snowman. It's none of those things? Okay, let's watch Netflix and chill. Now, the function that I used is called case. And case behaves a lot like isPickVal, but it's much more efficient. You go to the pick list field one time with your list of conditions and your list of results or actions to perform in one single step. So using a case function, now I mentioned that Bart had 17 stages in his sales process. Even using 4-point font, I couldn't fit the entire formula that I wrote for Bart on a single slide. So in the interest of time, whatever, I collapsed it down to only have 7 stages in my sales process, but I'll walk you through it. So I open up a case function and I insert the opportunity stage pick list field. Now, as an admin, I have access to all the values in that field in the field setup. I copied and pasted the entire list of stages into the formula, and I wrapped quotation marks around them. Then I took the first stage in the process and I turned it into the number 1. I took the second stage in the process and I turned that into the number 2. The third stage in the process, I turned it into the number 3. Spoiler alert, I turned the fourth stage into the number 4. Then I went all through the entire list of stages until I got to the very end, and I made closed won and closed lost both equal to the highest number because they are the last stage in the process. I'm simply turning words into numbers. That's all that I'm doing with the case function. Then I took what I wrote and I copied and pasted that into the same formula. This is all one formula. I copied and pasted what I wrote back into the formula, but in my second case statement, I wrapped a prior value function around the stage. Now I'm converting whatever the previous value of the stage field was, turn that into a number from 1 to 6. And then in between my two case functions, I just inserted a less than mathematic operator. Now, I might have flunked out of Bunker Hill Community College, but even I know that 1 is less than 2, 3, and 4, and 2 is less than 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm simply turning the current stage into a number, the prior stage into a number, and if the current stage is of a lesser value than the previous stage, I block the user from saving the record. So here, I'm trying to move an opportunity from proposal price quote back to value proposition. That's a lower value. I get blocked, I get an error message. I cannot save the record. I either have to leave it in the current stage or move it forward. Simple, simple formula using nothing more than basic math. Throat's getting a little bit dry, so it is after 5 o'clock, so I'm gonna have the my favorite local IPA, Cloud Candy. So this next one, this one also came from a question that was posted in the Answers community. And this was posted by a woman named Margaret Manna. Now, Margaret, she had a multi-pick list field on her org. And before I go any further, I should confess that I hate multi-pick list fields. To me, multi-pick list fields are good at 3 things. Allowing a user to select one or more things from a list of options, sucking, and I forget what the third one is. But you're gonna run into them. I mean, I hate them with a passion, but even I have to create multi-pick list fields on my own org. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just the lowly admin. I can only push back so hard. And sometimes I have to create a multi-pick list field. And the problem is users put things in multi-pick list fields, but the values in a multi-pick list field are just stored as a lump of semi-comma delimited text. And someday, like Margaret, you're gonna need to get the count of the things that the user selected in that multi-pick list field. So to solve this, I created a custom formula field on the object that returned a number as the result. And I used a function called if, a function called includes, and a plus operator. Now, if you've never written an if statement before, they work on the if then else principle. If a condition that you provide is found, then the formula does what you tell it to do. Or else it tells you it does something else you tell it to do. So you provide a condition, you provide the instructions for what to do if that thing is found, and you also provide an else result, if then else. So I open up my first if statement, and I use the includes function, and includes is kind of like the multi-pick list cousin of is pick val. Includes queries a multi-pick list field and looks for a value. Now, again, as the admin, I've got access to the entire list of values in that field. So I don't have to cover every possible combination of values. I'm just looking for if they selected the first value or the second value or the third value or the fourth value, as many values that there are in that list. So I open up my first includes function, my first if statement. I use an includes function to query the multi-pick list field. And I look for the first value in the menu. If I find that value, then I return the number 1. Or else, I return the number 0. If, then else. Then I close that if statement out because I'm done looking for that first value. Then I add a plus operator. Then I open up another if statement, another includes function, and I go back to the multi-pick list field, and I look for the second value in the field, in the menu. If I find it, then I return a 1, or else I return a 0. And I just keep going through every single value in that multi-pick list menu, and I return 1s or 0s and add them up. That's all I'm doing. Just like in the first formula, I'm just turning words into numbers, 1s and 0s, and I'm adding up all those 1s and 0s. And then I can get a report that looks like this. And the cool thing is, you can take this exact same formula, exact same logic, and you can turn it into a validation rule. Maybe you got a multi-pick list field that's got like 10, 12 options in it, but you want to limit the maximum number of things that a person can pick to 3 or 4. Take this exact same formula, and at the very end, you add a greater than sign and whatever the maximum number of things you want the user to be able to pick. Now you got a validation rule. Or maybe you got a process where if somebody picks 3 or more things, they qualify for a discount or an upgrade or expedited shipping. Or maybe you need to fire off an email alert to somebody or an approval process. Take this exact same formula, and with a couple of tweaks, you can do any of those things. And at the end of the day, you're just turning words into numbers and doing basic math. Now, before we jump into the next section, does anybody have any questions about either of the formulas I showed you, or? No? Wow. Okay.
There are questions coming in the chat, Steve. Do you want me to ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure. I have the chat hidden so that I can go through the slides. Yeah, that'd be
I'll
great.
ask you a couple of questions that have popped up. First off, what beer are you drinking?
I am drinking a Cloud Candy. It's a dry hopped, double dry hopped New England IPA. So it's a New England IPA is like a recent thing where it's like they took the traditional IPA recipe and it's unfiltered. So it's really, really hazy, really cloudy, kind of juicy. And I'm drinking it from my Power One glass, which I stole from work.
And I'll ask another question, the most voted one. Steve Moe, I remember a few months back, you shared a simple package you created with a slew of formulas. Can you share that again? Or could you give us the link and then we could share it out to everyone?
Maybe. I mean, I did say there were going to be fabulous prizes at the end. So we'll see.
We'll circle back. And how about one more?
Sure.
With being able to leverage unique count on a lightning report, is power of one going to sunset / be relevant?
Yes, I don't hate on count unique. I think it's great because it's empowering to users. First of all, a user can use count unique. Whereas Power One, it is a formula field in the object, so only an admin can create it. There have been times over the years when I've suggested the Power One as a solution, and then the person pushes back and they're like, well, on my org, getting a custom field created is like an act of Congress. So nice thing about count unique is you can do it right in a report. But as far as the Power of One going away or being obsolete, that's not going to happen anytime soon. I mean, I love Count Unique, but Power of One still has some things over it. First of all, Count Unique only works in a Lightning report. Power of One works in Lightning or Classic. As far as unless they've made any changes, you can only have 3 Count Unique per report. You can have as many Power of Ones as you have objects in the report. So that's the only limit to the number of Power of Ones you can use. Another thing is Count Unique, you can use it in a report summary formula, but it's not fully baked in. So in some cases, you've got to manually type in the Count Unique count in the formula editor. The Power of One, it's a field. If that report has access to the Power of One field, it's right there in the menu. You just click and it's in your formula and you can do anything you want with it. So I think Power of One's definitely got some life left in it. I wouldn't go booking it for the dirt nap just yet. But I don't want it to sound like I'm hating on Count Unique or anything like that. And again, it's the fact that a user can use Count Unique that's no small potatoes, especially in a, like you work for a bank or an insurance company or the government, like getting a custom field created, that can be like a ticket and review and, we got to test it in Sandbox. It's like, it's a 1, just put it in production, but some orgs, the simplest field can take days, weeks, whatever, before it makes it into the next release cycle.
Great. We have a few more questions coming in, but we'll get back to those and we'll continue with the
Okay, all right. So this next section, I'm going to go over just a couple of formula fields that I've created that allow you to create really simple and, most importantly, dynamic report filters. These will allow you and your users to create a report, set the filter criteria, and in a lot of cases, never have to touch that filter criteria ever again. So this first one came from, again, like, the first 2, they actually came from questions that somebody posted in the answers community that I answered. And then this one in particular is one of my favorite ones because when I answered Sophie's question, I didn't really have a need for anything like this. I was just like, bored, took a crack at it, solved the question. But within a month, I was using this exact same formula that I built for her in my own org to solve my own problem. So Sophie, in her org, they had this process where users would create activities, assign the activities to other users, but those original users needed to be able to run a report and check the status of the activities that they had created and assigned. Now, if you've ever run a report or created a list view, you know that there's those menus at the top, and one of the menus has this option like my leads, my contacts, my accounts, my opportunities, my activities. Well, the me in my is the person who owns that record. But for Sophie, these people didn't own that record anymore. They created it and then transferred ownership to somebody else. And she didn't want to have to create a separate report for every single person in her org and change the filter criteria to created by Zach, created by Cindy, created by Chris, created by Katie, and have 5, 10, 15, 20 versions of this report. And then if they create a new custom field, now she's got to add that new custom field to 20 different copies of this report. Or maybe the chart's got a donut chart and they say, the donut, not really doing it for us. How about a funnel? Now she's got to edit 20 reports just to change the chart from a donut to a funnel. She wanted to have one report that anyone could run anytime, and it would show the activities that they created and what the status of those activities was with one report, and without having to edit the report filter every time she ran it or do anything like that. So, like I said, the me in my is the record owner. Well, when you click on that formula, the insert field button in the formula editor, you see the object at the top, and then in the right panel, there's the list of fields on that object. But down below the object, there's all these things with dollar signs. Those are called global variables. And one of the global variables is $user. $user is whatever user is logged in right now in that session. No matter how many users you got, no matter how big your org is. If we were all logged into the exact same org right now, and I'm creating a record, I'm $user. If Zach is looking at a list view, Zach is $user. If Cindy is running a report, Cindy is $user. If Chris is looking at a list view, Chris is $user. If Katie is editing a record, she's $user. We're all $user in that session. So I created a custom field on the activity object, and you can do this on any object. I selected formula as my data type and checkbox as my result type. I used the insert field button to go into the global variable of $user and get the $user's user ID. And I insert that into my formula. Then I go up to the object and I get the created by ID. And I just stick an equal sign in between the two of them. If those two IDs match each other, the person who created this record is the person who's looking at this record right now. If they match, I return a true or a checked checkbox. If they don't match, I return a false checkbox. That's it. Now I can create a report or a list view like this. And now I can use this checkbox. That's my filter criteria. So I create a list view and I just sort it by $user, my checkbox field. I can see next to every single record that I created, whether I own it now or not, a checked checkbox field. I could take this exact same field, use it as a report filter, a list view filter. And every single person who's running that report is only gonna see the stuff that they created. And the thing is, you can do this on any field that holds the user ID. It doesn't have to be created by. It can be last modified by. It can be a custom lookup field that looks up to the user object. And it doesn't even have to be ID. It can be $user profile. It can be $user role. It can be $user manager ID. You can do anything you want with this thing. And it's dynamic. You never have to edit that report again. Anyone running that report will see their results. No matter how many people you got in your org, no matter how many records you got in your org. Simple, it's just a formula checkbox that returns true or false. So this next one, this was one of my favorites. This was a kind of a, it didn't come to me right away. Like the one for Sophie, it was like, I knew what I had to do. I just didn't know if it was possible. And I kind of like fell into it really quickly. This one for Kelly was a bit of a tough nut to crack. But like Sophie, she was trying to create a dynamic report that she would never have to edit ever again. Now, her requirement was to be able to report on her month-to-date sales side by side, comparing it to the same period, the previous month, the month before that, the month before that, the month before that. And again, she wanted the report to be dynamic. She didn't want to run the report today and then tomorrow have to edit the date range filters before she runs the report. And when she runs it next week, edit the date range filters before she runs the report. And the week after that, edit the date range filters. The month after that, edit the date range filters. And forever have to edit this report every single time she ran it. She wanted to be able to just run the report any day, any week, any month of the year and see her month-to-date sales. So to do this, I created a formula that evaluated the number of the close date and the number of the current day and compared them to each other, kind of like we did with the formula for Sophie. And again, I created a custom formula field on the opportunity object that just returns a checkbox result, true or false. So the field I reference is the opportunity close date, and I used a function called day, a function called today, and a less than or equals mathematic operator. Now, if you've never done date time formulas before, the today function returns the current day. That's its sole purpose. It just returns today's date. If we created a custom formula field right now and selected date as our result type and inserted the today function into that formula and hit save, and we look at that record, that's going to show us May 21st, 2020. Tomorrow, we log back in and look at the exact same record. That formula date is going to show us May 22nd. The next day, it's going to show us May 23rd. It's going to keep showing us whatever the current day is for as long as there's electricity flowing through the server that our instance is sitting on in Salesforce. That's all it does. It shows us today's date. Now, the day function evaluates a date field or a date value, and it returns whatever the number is in the day portion of that date. It doesn't care about the year. It doesn't care about the month. It just returns the number of the day. If an opportunity had a close date of April 1st, 2019, and you wrap the day function around the close date field, it's going to give you back the number 1. If an opportunity had a close date of December 31st, 2018, it doesn't care about 2018, doesn't care about December, it's just going to give you back the number 31. If you wrap the day function around the today function, well, today, it's going to give you the number 21. Tomorrow, it's going to give you the number 22. The day after that, it's going to give you the number 23. Until it gets to the end of the month, then it's going to give you the number 1, the number 2, the number 3. That's all it does. So I created a custom formula field on the opportunity object that returns a checkbox, true or false, and I'm comparing the day of the opportunity close date to the day of today. Today is May 21st, day number 21. If the opportunity close date is April 1st, well, 1 is less than or equal to 21. It's going to return a true checkbox. December 31st, 31 is not less than or equal to 21. It's going to return a false checkbox. That's it. Now, the cool thing is, the second you hit save on this formula field, this field is now available in every standard opportunity report type and any existing report type that is built upon a standard opportunity report type. The one caveat to custom fields is if you're dealing with a custom report type, they don't automatically recognize newly created custom fields. There's an extra step. After you create the field, you've got to edit the custom report type layout editor, add your new custom field to the custom report type. Now you can start using it. That's the one caveat to custom report types. But the second you hit save, this field is now available. You can grab any opportunity report you've already got in existence. If it references a standard opportunity report type, there's your field. You grab it, you drag it in, use it as a report filter. Now you can get a report that looks like this. I ran this report on the 10th day of the month. Without any other filters, I can see side by side, month by month, my sales for the first 10 days of the month. And without changing any of the filters, if I ran this report right now, it would show me the sales side by side, month by month, for the first 21 days of the month. And it will keep doing that till the end of the month until it automatically resets to day number 1. And I never have to touch this report ever again. It's just a simple formula checkbox and some basic math. Now, I built that one for Kelly, but this one I had to build on my own Salesforce org. I had a similar but slightly different requirement. My users wanted to have a dynamic report that they could run every day of the any day, any week, any month of the year, and see their sales for the current year to date and compare it side by side for the exact same period the previous year and the year before that. Now, kind of borrowing on what I built for Kelly, I used a formula field and a checkbox, and I evaluate the close date, but I had to do a couple of other things in this formula. Again, I used the today function. I used a function called year, and I used a function called date, and once again, I just used a less than or equals mathematic operator. So today, as I already mentioned, it returns the current day. Year, it's kind of like the day function's cousin. Day goes into a date field and brings back the number of the day. Year goes into a date field and brings out the 4-digit number of the year. Date allows us to build a date value by providing the 4-digit year, 2-digit month, and 2-digit day. So to do this, kind of like what we did for Kelly, I was comparing the day of the month of the opportunity close date to the day of the month of the current day. If it was less than or equal, I return a checkbox. But for this formula I built on my org, I had to get the day of the year that the opportunity closed and compare it to the day of the year that today is. And if it's less than or equal, return a true or checkbox. Otherwise, return an unchecked checkbox. And again, I want this to be dynamic. If we're on day 100 of the year, I want to see the first 100 days of opportunities. If we're on day 101, I want to see the first 101 days worth of opportunities. If we're on day 200, I want to see the first 200 days of the opportunities. And I don't want to have to edit the date range filter every time I want to run this thing. So to calculate that, I got to get the duration. And this trips a lot of people up, especially when they're just getting into date time formulas. To calculate the duration between two date fields, you got to subtract the earlier date from the later date. So you got to kind of like, when you think of it visually, you always start at the beginning and go to the end. But mathematically, you've got to flip them. You got to subtract the lesser value from the greater value. The end date has more days in it than the start date. So you're subtracting the lesser value from the greater value. So to get the duration, you subtract start from end. To calculate someone's age, you subtract their birthday from today's date. To get the day of the year, you subtract January 1st from today. To get the day and opportunity closed, you got to subtract January 1st of the opportunity close date from the day the opportunity closed. But my org's got 25, 30,000 opportunities. I've got opportunities that closed in 2003. I got opportunities that have closed in 2020. I've got opportunities that are gonna close in 2021, 2022. The year of the close date, that's depending on that particular opportunity. So I gotta be able to calculate that dynamically. So to do that, the today function, again, gives us today's date. Year today will give us today's year. Year close date will give us the year that that opportunity closed. Whether it was 2003, 2020, 2019, 2021, the year of that opportunity close date. Now, the day function, it creates a date, but I got to give it the month, the day, and the year. Well, luckily, my company's not on a custom fiscal year, so my year begins on January 1st. That's easy. I can hard code in 01 for January and 01 for January 1st, but I still need the year to build this date field. So to dynamically build my January 1st of this year, for the year component, I insert the today function and then wrap a year function around it. That is going to dynamically give me the 4-digit number of this year, no matter what year this year is. 2020, 2021, 2022, 2099. It doesn't matter. This thing is going to keep giving me January 1st of whatever year this is. Then I essentially do the same thing for the close date. I hard code in 01 for the month, 01 for the day, and then I wrap a year function around the close date to build my January 1st. If the opportunity closed on December 31st, 2018, date, year, close date 0101 is going to give me January 1st, 2018. If it closed July 14th, 2019, date, year, close date 0101 is going to give me January 1st, 2019. Or January 1st, 2020. So here's my formula. Again, it's just a formula checkbox. That's all it is. I'm not doing complex math. I'm just subtracting January 1st of the opportunity close date from the close date. That's going to give me the day of the year this opportunity closed. Then I'm subtracting January 1st of this year from today's date. That's going to give me the day of today. And then in between the two, I'm inserting a less than or equals mathematic operator. If the opportunity closed on February 15th, that's day 45. Today, May 21st, because it's a leap year, that's day 142. 45 is less than or equal to 142. The formula is going to give me a checkbox. If the opportunity closed on November 28th, 2018, that was day 331. 331 is not less than or equal to 142. It's going to give me a false or an unchecked checkbox. And just like before for Kelly, second I hit save, I can grab my field, add it as a report filter. That's my filter. Close date, year to date equals true. And here's my report. I ran this report in April, and I can see side by side my sales up until that day in April for 2020, 2019, 2018. If I went into my org right now and ran this report, it would show me my sales up to and including May 21st, 2020, 2019, 2018. I never have to touch this report again. It will run like this until the end of time. Ooh, I'm getting a little parched. So does anybody have any questions about them? They got a little bit more complex as it went on, but in a sense, they didn't really change that drastically, because at the end of the day, you're just comparing two things to each other. And if they match, or if they are less than or equal to a checkbox or an unchecked checkbox, that's your filter criteria. And again, the beauty of it is it's dynamic. Today, tomorrow, next week, next month, the report will automatically update itself.
Did you want a couple of questions, Steve?
Yeah, sure.
So the top question is, would you tell us about staying put as an admin at one company for so many years? With all of the demand for admins, that seems unusual. What is your take?
I've never really had that itch. And also I happen to be very, very fortunate in my situation. And a lot of it, I say that I've Forrest Gumped my way into situations that I could have never imagined before. A lot of it's just sheer dumb luck. I had been fortunate to as a Salesforce admin, and way before becoming a Salesforce admin, worked with some incredible people. And so when you're with great people like that, it's, you know, it's tough to leave, and there's no desire to leave. Like, why leave great people? Like, and also in 2003, the company I work for relocated from, you know, they relocated like 20 miles, but where they relocated to is the same town that we're living in right now. So my commute went from 20 minutes to not quite 20 feet, but you know, so that it's a great fit for a number of reasons. I just, you know, and just becoming a Salesforce admin, I was extremely fortunate. A lot of people ask me, like, well, you know, especially people that struggle with formulas, they'll ask me like how I got good at writing them. I was extremely fortunate in that when my company got Salesforce, I was already working in a role as a Lotus Domino developer. And Domino had a formula language that was 99% the same as Salesforce formula language. So before I even wrote my first Salesforce formula field or validation rule, I had already written 1,000 formulas that if I had copied and pasted them out of my Lotus Domino database and put them into the formula editor and click check syntax, they would have passed syntax. The syntax was the same, the logic was the same. So I caught a lot of breaks, and not the least of which was having an amazing boss. I mean, he was in Domino what, like, I don't know if you guys ever heard of a guy named Deepak Anand. In my opinion, Deepak is the greatest of all time. He is hands down the best I've ever seen. He thinks on another level. You see what he does, how he does it, and you're just in awe of what you're witnessing. My old boss in the Domino days was like a Deepak, and also super generous with that knowledge. And also, no small thing, I've worked with a bunch of brilliant people, but teaching is its own thing. There's some super brilliant people out there. They can't teach someone to tie their shoelaces. They're just not cut out to teach. They just don't have that, whatever it is, the patience, the way of breaking something down into the pieces that the student needs to learn to get through it. My boss could teach. He could even teach me. And so, I mean, it's like, you know, I was being taught by Albert Einstein. You know, I mean, I hit the jackpot on so many different, so many different occasions. So that makes it, you know, I was very fortunate, and also, you know, put me in a situation that it, you know, never really had like the desire to move. Never had like the wanderlust.
That was a very good answer, Steve. Let's ask a technical question now.
Sure.
Have you figured out a way to use $ user field to create a pseudo dynamic dashboard to avoid running into the limits Salesforce puts on them?
No, Monday. I'm back on Monday. Yeah.
So in theory, if I'm reading this correctly, create a formula checkbox field on, say, the opportunity object, and then in your pseudo dynamic dashboard, your dashboard filter is checkbox equals true. Is that close?
I would do it.
I asked the question.
Yeah.
So I ran into this. I was building a dashboard for managers to do a one-on-one,
Mhm.
and I tried to steal your formula from the community, and I tied it with a visual flow, a screen flow where the user or where the manager could enter a sales rep's name. It would actually go and put their user ID in a field I created, a dynamic user field.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get around routed dynamic dashboards.
Okay.
But what I ran into is because that's being stored on a user field, that dashboard has to be running as that user.
Oh.
Is there anywhere you could store it using global variables to get around something like that?
Global variable, or I haven't done a lot with them, but I hear some people doing some really cool things with this custom metadata type. That might, or could it, are all the objects in the, are all the reports in the dashboard of the same primary object, like opportunities or something like that, or leads? Could you insert that into a field on the opportunity or lead object and use that as your dashboard level filter? It sounds doable. It doesn't sound, I mean, like you're pushing the envelope, but it doesn't sound like you're way out there in, like, you know, no man's land. It sounds like you're right on that edge of what is doable.
Yeah, like you said, I got close and I was able to use it in like a list view for one aspect of like our pipeline review. But if you could have it at the like that dashboard level and go against multiple reports.
And that right there, it's like you're onto something. You know, had your list view just like nothing. If you got nowhere with the list view, that's almost like you gotta, I almost like, this comes up with dashboard questions a lot. It's like, if you can solve for the report, then you're halfway there on the dashboard. Like you see people trying to do like, whether it's a dashboard component or something like that. I'm like, okay, but go back to the report, solve for the report first. If you can get the report chart to display everything you want, you almost always can get that into the dashboard. Even if your dashboard component is a different chart type, if you can get it into the report level chart, you can almost always get there. But if what you're doing or asking cannot even be done at the report level chart, well, okay, don't even bother with if you can't get it in the report chart, don't even bother trying on the dashboard level. Solve for the report first. The fact that you got it with a list view, I think you're close. I think you can do it.
Awesome. That was a really good answer, Steve. We do have a queue of questions, and I understand you have a lot more great content for us. So do you want to pick back up your presentation?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
I'll try and pick up the pace too. So this next one I created for my own org. So anybody have multiple level account hierarchies in the Salesforce org? And so use that parent account lookup field to connect accounts to each other. Then you connect the parent to the grandparent, the grandparent to the great-grandparent, stuff like that. But then you try to create an opportunity summary report and you try to group it by that parent account field, and you get a mess like this. So Octan is the parent of Lego and United Oil and Gas, and Lego is the parent of Pyramid Construction, and United Oil and Gas has 3 subsidiaries itself, and you get this train wreck. So maybe you try to add a chart to make sense of it all, and then you've got to hopefully get a calculator. It's got the red, green, orange, yellow, and blue buttons, so you can add up all the revenue from all those little Octan stacks and Lego stacks and the United Oil and Gas stacks. Now, I got a saying about reports and dashboards. If you build a report or a dashboard and the person using it needs to pull out a piece of paper and a pencil or a calculator to tell what that report is telling them, you built a shitty dashboard. And builder of shitty dashboards is not something I want on my resume. So to fix this, I had to create a formula field that would return the name of the top account in the account hierarchy. But the problem is, I've got 20,000 accounts on my org. I have no way of knowing if that particular account is the parent account or has no parent account. If that account is the second level of the account hierarchy or the bottom level of the account hierarchy, or if there is no hierarchy at all. Because any one of those accounts, of those 20,000 accounts, could be anywhere in that hierarchy. And again, there may be no hierarchy at all. So to solve this, I used a function called blank value. I created a formula text field on the account object, not on the opportunity object, it's on the account object. And I used a function called blank value and the parent account name. Now, I can't mention the blank value function without throwing a shout out to a guy I mentioned earlier, Deepak Anand. In my opinion, he is the greatest of all time. His stuff is just, it's on another level. And more than just his solutions, it's when he solves something, he explains it in such a way that even an idiot like me can understand it. So I'd seen the blank function, the blank value function, for years. It's one of the oldest functions in the Salesforce library. But I could never really wrap my head around, what is this thing? How can I really use it? And then one day, Deepak answered somebody's question, and he solved it by using the blank value function, and he explained exactly what he was doing with blank value. When he explained it that way, it was like we say here in Massachusetts, dawn came to Marblehead. I'll try to do it justice, but I really can't. The way blank value works is, if you have a field, and that field might be blank, and if it's blank, that's going to cause a bad result in your formula. You can provide a substitute to use instead. Like an example of that is, if you divide by 0, you break the laws of mathematics. If you do that in a formula, Salesforce is going to return a result that is literally the pound sign and the word error. And nobody wants to see that. But maybe you got a formula where you're doing some division to return a percent or something like that. Well, you got 10, 20, 30,000 records. Maybe some of those fields are going to have zeros in them or blanks in them. Your formula is going to return a pound error message for those records. Well, you can use blank value in your math formula to say, okay, use this field, but if it's blank, use this other field as the divisor, or use this hard-coded number that I'm going to provide instead. So the formula will keep doing the division that you want. You get a nice result. So I opened up a formula text field on the account object, and I used the insert function to insert a blank value. Then I used the insert field button to go into the account object. Then I stepped into the account object and I grabbed the parent account field. Now, when you're in the formula editor, if you see a greater than sign next to a field name, that means the field's a lookup. And then you can step through the lookup field into that object. So I started the account, I found the parent account lookup field. I stepped through the parent account lookup field into the parent account record. I found the parent account lookup field on the parent account and I stepped through that. Then I found the parent account lookup field on that record and I stepped through that. Now, before I did this, I did some research and I found that the highest level account hierarchy in my org was 4 levels high. But I wanted to build myself a buffer. So I started the account object and I went up, 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 6 levels and got the parent, 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 parent account name. But I don't know which account I'm on. I got 20,000 accounts. I may be at the top account. I may be at the bottom account. I may be at an account that has no hierarchy at all. So when I get there, it might be blank. So I provide a substitute. So I go up 5 levels and I grab the parent account name. But I don't know if this account has a great, 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 great grandparent. It might be blank. So I open up another blank value and I go up 4 levels, but this might be blank. So I provide a substitute. I open up another blank value and I go up 3 levels. Then I go up 2 levels. Then I go up 1 level. If I've gone up 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 levels and haven't found any parent account names, then I must be standing on the parent account or there is no account hierarchy. In which case, just give me back the name of the account that I'm sitting on right now. And then I close the entire thing out. This is essentially nothing more than a nested blank value function. I go out 6 levels, look for the account name. If I find it, I get it. If I don't find it, I go out 5 levels. If I find it, I bring it back. If not, I go back 4 levels. Find it, bring it back, or go back 3 levels. Find it, bring it back. Down, 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 all the way down to the account that I'm on. And again, second I hit save, this field is available to use in any report, including the report. This is the exact same report we started with. I simply grab my brand new ultimate parent account name field and I swap it as my report group with the standard parent account field. Now I can get a report. This is the exact same report we started with. All the Octane revenue, all in one nice, neat bucket. All of the Wernham Hog Dunder Mifflin revenue in one nice, neat bucket. And I can get a chart that looks like this now. No red, green, orange, yellow, blue calculator. And Three Stooges, Initech, done Mid-State Office Supply. Those 3 accounts that had no parent, well, they're not out in this blank space on the report like the Island of Misfit Toys. Their account name has been copied over into the ultimate parent account because they are the ultimate parent account in that hierarchy. And their revenue is not in this nameless, faceless stack. It's just a formula text field. That's all it is with a nested blank value function. So this next one, I really like this one because it caused a bit of a stink at work a couple of weeks ago when I used it in a report and showed it to everybody. I wanted to create a dynamic report that would show our opportunity pipeline, our open upcoming opportunities, when they're due to close, how much they're worth and what stage they're at. But I also wanted to do the same thing for our open and overdue opportunities. When they were supposed to close, how many days they're overdue, what stage they're at, and how much they're worth. And again, I wanted this report to be dynamic. I didn't want to have to edit the date filters, the stage filters, anything like that. I just wanted to run a report of any currently open opportunity. That's all I wanted to do. What's open? When's it going to close? When should it have closed? How much is it worth? What stage it's at? And I want it to be dynamic. So to do that, I created a formula field to count the number of days until or since the opportunity close date. So I used a function called if, which I showed earlier on, if then else. A field called is closed. This is a hidden field, but it's there for everybody. A lot of people don't know about it. And again, our old buddy, the today function. So if you've ever created or edited an opportunity stage, you know that it's not a plain vanilla pick list field. You can't just throw a stage name in there and be done with it. If you create a brand new opportunity stage, Salesforce asks you a couple of questions. What's the default probability of this stage? What's the default forecast category of this stage? And what is this stage type? And there's only 3 choices: open, closed won, and closed lost. I don't care how many stages you got. I don't care how many sales processes you got. I don't care how many opportunity record types you got. Every stage is either open, closed won, or closed lost. And what Salesforce does when you as an admin pick that option, open, closed won, closed lost, when a user selects that stage and hits save on an opportunity, Salesforce sets 2 hidden checkbox fields. Every opportunity record has them. You can't see them, but they're there and you can use them. Every opportunity stage is either closed or it's not closed. Every opportunity stage is either won or it's not won. So we're going to create a custom formula field on the opportunity object that returns a number as the result type. We're going to use an if statement. And again, if works on the if then else principle. So we open up our if statement. We evaluate that is closed checkbox field. If it's true or checked, return null, nothing, blank, because it's closed. We don't want to count any more days. It's closed. We don't care about it. If it's not closed, then count the number of days until close. And again, you subtract the earlier date from the later date. If the opportunity is open, in theory, the close date should be later than today. So we subtract today from the close date. This is going to give us the number of days until close. So if the opportunity is closed, the formula is going to give us null. If the opportunity close date is May 28th, this formula is going to give us back the number 7. If the opportunity isn't closed and the opportunity close date was May 1st, it's going to give us back the number -20. Now, pro tip, no matter how simple you think your formula is or how good you think you are at writing formulas, always create a report or a list view that shows your formula field and your formula results side by side, and get out your calculator, get out your calendar, check your work. So we test our formula logic, test our formula results, everything looks good.
Hey,
So,
Steve,
yep.
just wanted to jump in. We have 10 minutes left of the user group, and I think you mentioned something about prizes, and we still have a good amount of questions left, just to respect all like 60 to 80, 100 people's time.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. So now we create a report. We take our favorite opportunity report. We set our filter to be opportunity status is open, and then we create a bucket. Now you can't bucket by a date field, but our formula is not returning a date field, a date value. It's returning a number, and you can bucket by numbers. So we add our days until close, add a report bucket, and then we start bucketing in 30-day increments, -90 days or more out, -90 to 60, 60 to 30, 30 to 0, 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90. Now we can get a report that looks like this. This is our entire opportunity pipeline. Everything is upcoming, everything is overdue. Looking at the right side of the report, we can see the upcoming opportunities, what's due to close in the next 30 days, what stage it's at, how much it's worth. Looking at the left side, what was supposed to close in the last 30 days, how much it's worth. And what's really concerning is stuff that's 90 days or more overdue, over $1.1 million in overdue opportunities. So the last formula I want to show you is not really a formula. It's a little trick to test validation of a formula logic. So if you've ever created a formula in the formula editor, there's the check syntax button. You write your formula, you click it, you get the green, hopefully you get the green error message. The problem is that it only checks the syntax of the formula, not the logic. If you remember, even I flunked, remember from basic algebra, A plus B divided by C and A plus B divided by C, they're both syntactically correct, but the logic is different. And in a validation rule, that can be potentially bad. So how do you test your validation rule logic? Well, when you're writing a validation rule, you're really writing a test for the bad condition. A true result means the record's bad. A false result means the record is good and will pass. Just like validation rules, checkboxes are Boolean. They're either true or they're false. So what I created on my org is a validation rule formula checkbox field on every single object. Now you only need one of these fields on each object. You don't need one for every validation rule. So suppose we want to create a validation rule to prevent that condition with open, overdue, lapsed opportunities. So we want to write a validation rule to prevent that. But we need to exempt closed opportunities from the rule because the people in shipping have to put in the FedEx tracking number. The people in accounts receivable have to put in the invoice date or the payment date. They need to be able to edit a closed opportunity after the close date. We don't want to prevent them from doing their job. So we need to exempt closed opportunities. So we could write a validation rule like this, but Salesforce doesn't recommend using is, closed, and validation rules. So we could write a validation rule like this, or like this, or like this. But we want to check the logic. So before we put it into a validation rule, we're going to put it into our formula checkbox field. And again, if this formula returns a true or checkbox, the record would fail. If it returns an unchecked checkbox, the record would pass. So we check the syntax, we're halfway home. We create a report or a list view that shows our validation rule test, and we can see we've got a problem. These three closed, one enclosed opportunities, they've got a checkbox. They're supposed to be exempt. I normally would ask if anybody knows what I did wrong, but in the interest of time, my problem is that I use the word or. An opportunity stage can only have one value. And by using the word or, I created a loophole, a loop from which no closed opportunity could ever escape. If the user selects closed one, they fail because they didn't select closed lost. If they select closed lost, they fail because they didn't select closed one, unless they're Schrodinger's cat. So to fix this, we remove the or clause and just wrap an and around the entire thing. Put this into our formula checkbox field, check the syntax, then run our report or our list view, and we can see that the only two records with a checkbox are the ones that should have failed the validation rule. Now, one caveat, you can't use, not every function that's available in a validation rule is available in a formula field. So you can't use is new, is change, prior value, or VLOOKUP. You'll have to either remove those functions from the formula checkbox field or comment them out, but you can test the rest of your logic. And I did say there were fabulous prizes, so I created an unmanaged package in my dev org. Here's a link to it and the password. It's free. You can, download it. I will share the link in the chat, and I will share the deck with the link. It's got the days until close, the validation rule test on all the standard objects, days since close, the ultimate parent account, month-to-date close date, year-to-date close date, the power of one. Download it into your sandbox, download it into your dev org, play around with it, then install it into production when you're ready, and bust into your Rapinoe pose.
Steve,
how are we doing on time?
Thank you. We have 5 minutes, and that was amazing. Thanks for rushing through that last part. As everybody knows, we have the recording. Zach, if we can get through just a couple of questions, but what we can do, since everything is, all the questions have been submitted through Slido, we can work with Steve to get these answers and then post them to the group. So we're not going to try to ask people to hang on, because that wouldn't be fair to those who need to drop. But what we can do is just use this time, get a couple of questions, and then put the rest of it out later. Thank you so much, Steve. That was wonderful.
And I'm dropping the link to the URL and the password into the chat right now.
Awesome. And let me grab that and I'll put it in. He sent it to me. There we go. Awesome. So just going to jump right into questions. So we have a field, current year sales, and want to assign a dynamic formula to forecast our total yearly sales. Example, January 13th and sales equal 13,000. 13,000 divided by 13 times 365 equals number. What would you recommend for the best way to accomplish this?
All right, so let me, I want to make sure I'm wrapping my head around this. So suppose, for example, you are 20% into the year and your sales is $200,000. You want to be able to project what your sales at the end of the year would be. And so in theory, it would be, your projection would be $1 million. You want to project based on what you've got already booked and where you are in the year. You want to project like where you're tracking. Is that correct?
So I don't have the full information on that question, but I do know the individual that asked that. We'll put that as a follow-up question.
If that's what they want, I've done that. So taking what you've got and using like your sample size and hope, as you move through the year, you gather more data. You can kind of project where you're tracking if things hold true. Yeah, but I have done that. And again, there's also the caveat that like day one, your sample size is 1 day. So it's like, you just got to hope that somebody doesn't like they close something like they wake up New Year's Day. It's like, oh man, I forgot to book that. Oh, like day one, holy crap. If we keep this up, we're $50 trillion for the year. We're going to be.
Awesome. We have time for one more question, then I'll email you the rest because they're all pretty technical. But this one seems pretty fast. How did your conversation come to be for Power of One? What business problem led to it being raised to your attention?
The Power of One? It was, so I learned the Power of One at my first Dreamforce. My first Dreamforce was Dreamforce 09. And I was in an analytics workshop that was hosted by Tom Tobin, the creator of the Power of One. And to me, it really is, it on so many levels, it's the greatest formula of all time. And in no small part, it's simplicity and power and elegance. Like he showed it. And then he showed a report or a chart where he was using it to count the number of users who own an opportunity, accounts that have an opportunity, and opportunities and opportunity products, all in one report using all the just these ones. And my jaw hit the floor. I'd gotten into formulas at that point, especially with my background in Lotus, but it's almost like, like the punk rock of formulas. Like you like that first one in my first slide, that prorated invoicing, business days, blah, blah, blah. That's like, like the 12th Led Zeppelin album when it was like, they got all those last Who albums when they got all bloated and everything was like overly produced and symphonic. The Power One's like punk rock. It's the Ramones. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually 1, 1, 1, 1. To see something so simple, that's it's one of the things that kind of led me to this whole presentation. I mean, I actually presented that Swiss Army knife formula one time at Dreamforce, because I had just written it that year. I was so proud, and I presented at Dreamforce a couple of times, and I always felt like I gotta up my game. I gotta show something bigger and better and blah. And I showed it, and I got home, and I was just like, how many people in the audience need to do that piece of crap. Like, how many, like, 99.9% of the audience were probably looking at their phone 2 minutes into the presentation because they don't need to do prorated invoicing by business day. And so I started to like really think back, like, what can everybody use? Everybody uses close date. And if they don't, even if you don't use opportunities, use cases. Cases have a close date. If you don't use opportunity stage, case status, lead status. What are the core formulas that apply across any object, any business model, any use case? That's really what drove me to kind of like go back to the, you know, kind of paying homage to the power of one. Like, because it is so universal and so powerful and yet so simple. I mean, it really is the perfect formula.
Yeah, it really sounds like it. Thank you for that answer. And we want to thank everyone for spending their evening with us. We want to take a quick screenshot. So if you want to get on camera, come and smile. I'm not doing it candid. I can only fit 25 people in the screenshot. I know we've had over 100 join us this evening. So just get on camera. We'll give it a moment for folks to start popping up. And if I could get 2 more to come on. So let's see if I can find screenshot on my computer. Everyone smile while I get the screenshot. Just hold that smile. My shirt looks so weird.
I actually was gonna post it and note a little A on my t-shirt for Austin.
Why is it no timer? And smile, 1, 2, 3. Awesome, got it. Thank you so much, everyone. Steve, I'm gonna send you the rest of the questions in an email, and then we'll post the answers on the success community. Big thanks again to Merivis. If you want to volunteer with them, the volunteer link is in the chat, and we appreciate everyone spending time with us this evening.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you,
a lot of fun.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
I learned a lot.
Yeah, I know you weren't paying attention to the chat, but we're seeing things like "thank you," "awesome," "this was incredible," great stuff. So thank you.
I finally was able to open it up. I always worry about if about doing something in the middle of the session. So I'm always afraid to click. But I could see like the little pop-ups, and I was just like, oh, I wonder what people are saying. But I was like, if I click on it, my PowerPoint's gonna die or something like that.
But yeah, it was amazing. Thank you so much. It really is an honor to have you present. You really are a Salesforce legend, and I know you don't know, but you have helped me out a ton over the years, so I really appreciate it.
I like doing it. You know, it's like I was telling somebody the other day, like the Trailblazer community is like, it's like this corner of the internet where everybody is still nice to each other. You know, like
yeah.
That's wonderful. A quick reminder, Zach, obviously we have questions in Slido that we need to get, but I don't know if you or Kate could possibly get the questions that are embedded in the chat within Zoom, because there's several there as well.
Let me go through and just grab them and put them in an email to Zach.
Okay, thank you.
Before I won't cut off the recording. Actually, let me just pause the recording.